There were lots of museums and collections in Campbell County prior to the Rockpile Museum, but never a public history museum. And so a lot of the old-time families, pioneers, got together, and they started to get together. Well, the Historical Society got together in 1954, and they never had a museum or a location. And then a lot of them wanted to see a museum established, started talking about it in the 60s. And then by 1968, a Gillette Campbell County Museum Board was formed. By the early 70s, I think 72, they started construction in this area. And the museum opened then finally in July of 1974. And the purpose was really to preserve that pioneer history of Campbell County, the homesteading history and the ranching culture, because by 1974, Gillette and Campbell County were really changing and had been changing for a decade plus. And so I think it was a reaction to that change where they wanted to see old Campbell County preserved and their history and their family's history. And so the Rockpile Museum became that place to preserve and tell the stories of Campbell County from the beginning. The Rockpile Museum really kind of provides a foundation for who the community is, who we are, how we came about to be the city and county we are, our families, and the people who were important to this region, and telling their stories. So a lot of great benefits that museums have.
My name's Angela Bankin. I'm the registrar.
Penny Schroeder. I'm the educator.
Kara Reese. I'm the collections assistant.
Robert Henning. I'm the director here at the Rockpile Museum.
I've been with the museum for 25 years.
12 years.
3.5 years.
I've been here for a little over a year.
The Rockpile Museum and all museums really have several benefits. First, it's quality of life. Provides a great community center for people to come together and tell stories and learn history.
It's very interesting. Everyone is very connected, a lot of the families. So it's been great to speak with the different donors and find out the connections they have to each other and their connections to the collections that we have here.
It shares the story of the people in the community, and it teaches you where you've been and where you might be going, and people learn to appreciate things about their own families that they didn't necessarily know.
What's unique about museums is that we educate or teach or display, whatever way you want to look at it, with objects. So you aren't listening to a lecture necessarily, or reading a book. You get to see the actual objects, and that defines museums, and that defines the Rockpile Museum. This year, we've had fantastic letters. We have fantastic letters in the collection. That's how this exhibit really started and then evolved into the audio portion. It was decided then to see if we could bring the family members in, at least some family members in, and record letters for this exhibit. So that was very exciting. And we'll also have print examples for people to sit down and read. So that they get that feeling, get the true feeling of what it was like at that time. This particular exhibit is a really rare opportunity to look into what these men went through during World War II. And the voices you're hearing are the families, the descendants of these men. So essentially, it's almost like you're hearing them. And that's a very rare opportunity.
With this exhibit, one of the men who read the letters, his father was in World War II, and he's been helping us with research into World War I and World War II documents that are in our collection. So he's definitely a great asset to us. I love the audio component of the letters. I think it really brings people into the different stories of all the soldiers. And each soldier, I just find it so amazing that they all came from this area and each one ended up in different areas throughout Europe and Asia. And they were all part of significant events during the war. So I just think that's amazing. And to hear people come in and tell the stories, more personal stories about their family members it's great to be a part of. I feel like through talking with the donors that they've felt like the exhibits in the collections have given them a chance to reach out with the stories of their families.
My roles in helping with the exhibits are helping with research, and I help plan the openings that we have here. I think it was 2 years ago when we first started having World War II Day, and Angela was starting in. We started talking, and we had a World War II exhibit and program called In Praise of Patriots, and it was really good, and we had a lot of interest in it. And so then last year we had a program and an exhibit with the Bennick photos, and that was really popular. So we decided if we could, that we would have a World War II exhibit in conjunction with our March 6th grade World War II Day program. Just the different letters and the stories and some of the things that the people have faced that were from Campbell County that fought in the war, in World War II, some of their different stories. You never knew. It's surprising.
The stories are really terrific stories. The letters are powerful. The fact that the families are involved with this makes it that much more interesting, and it's about Campbell County people. This isn't an exhibit that came from Cheyenne or Cody or Denver. This is something that has been created here in Gillette about people that fought for us in World War II, that were born and raised here, and men that came back here and stayed in this community and made Gillette and Campbell County what it is. And so these are people that we're trying to honor, and I think this exhibit is going to do a really wonderful job of doing that. So I want everybody to come and see it.
My name is Jim Kintz. I am the son of Philip J. Kintz, who's my father, who served in World War II in the U.S. Army in the 124th Cavalry, Troop F. He was trained in the cavalry and prepared to go to war, but when he was deployed to Burma, he didn't take his horse. These letters were retrieved at the passing of my grandmother, his mother, and were then sent to my father by our cousin, Mary Lou. These letters we found upon the passing of my father many years ago. So these were all new to us when we read them for the first time. This letter is dated March 8, 1945, was written in Burma in the Japanese side of the war. Letter reads, "Dearest Mom and all, has been several days since I have had time to write.
My name is Greg Bennick. I'm reading a letter that my father wrote from the New Hebrides Islands in the South Pacific in August of 1944. My dad was a chief photographer's mate in the Navy. He did aerial reconnaissance and combat photography with the Marines. At the time he wrote this letter, he was the senior enlisted man at the photo lab in Espiritu Santos. New Hebrides, August 16th, 1944. Dear folks, just received your letter dated 24th of July.
I'm Paul McCreary. I'm reading the letter my father Pat wrote to my mother Marie, dated July 16th, 1942. The envelope has a passed by naval censor stamp on it. Sent airmail with a 6-cent airmail stamp, postmarked July 18th, 1942. The envelope also has a handwritten note by my mother, dated July 20th, 1942. First letter received after definitely leaving shore, July 13th, 1942. Hello, darling. How's my honey tonight? I'm more lonesome tonight than I've ever been for some reason or other.
Okay, my name is James Allen Edwards, and I'm here to read a letter from my Uncle Bud, who was in World War II. That we found my cousin in 2014 on D-Day asked me if we had anything about him. So I went down and looked in the trunks that we had and found all the letters that he wrote to my grandpa and my mom, or his dad and my mom, and from 1941 when he got drafted till July the 2nd, 1944 was his last letter that he wrote. It says, "Dear folks, received 2 letters Thursday and 1 last."
I'm Mickey Schober. This is a letter from a collection of letters that my father sent home when he was in the service. So this letter is April 1st, 1944. They were in Topeka, Kansas. They had finished bomber training, all their training, and they were picking up this plane and they were headed overseas to Italy by way of Brazil and in Africa was the route that they had taken. They were pretty lucky that they were selected to fly a plane over. The other choice was 30 days by boat. Here we go, Topeka, Kansas, April 1st, 1944. Dearest Mom, Dad, Ruth, and Shirley, I figure I better write you a few lines while the writing is good.
Tennant Island is an island in the Marianas where the main Air Force fleet of bombers were deployed for bombing Japan. Uncle Frank his detachment was one of the bomb loading crews. And I don't know this to be fact, but he told me one time that one of the people on his detachment crew was the famous boxer Joe Louis. This is to his sister and her husband, Roy Mankin. Dear Ora and Roy, got your letter and was so glad to hear it.
How are you all? I made it to town today. Makes about the 3rd time since I've been here. How's things? Has everybody settled in yet? I do hope that little Dot is feeling pert. I've been feeling really good considering the heat here. The temperature stays around 107 nearly all the time, and I'm just not used to it, I guess.
I'm Paul McCreary. I'm reading a letter from my great-uncle Maurice Powers to his sister, my grandmother, Genevieve Rowan. It begins with a proclamation put out on Thanksgiving on VE Day on 9th May 1945 in the Austrian Tyrol sector. This was written and read to all military personnel by Chaplain Maurice E. Powers, Captain, United States Army. On October 12, 1492, a stalwart Genoese mariner knelt in thanksgiving on San Salvador Island in the Bahama Group and thanked his God for a safe journey and a new conquest. In 1620, a nomadic group of pilgrims seeking liberty without tyranny knelt on December 21st of that year in humble thanksgiving to their God, and the wilderness became a home and blessing. When Lord Cornwallis surrendered his sword to General Washington at Yorktown on October 19, 1781, a new nation bowed its head in prayer.